I'm all here.
Tell me your name one more time.
I'm Andrew.
Andrew and Barbara.
Yes.
Correct. Hi. I'm not sure if you want to be on video. Just
okay.
I don't. Yeah. And so, Andrew, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Troy.
Okay.
It's this really wealthy, really ethnically diverse suburb outside of Detroit.
Okay.
With a lot of great suburban amenities.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so, but you've spent a little bit of time in Flint as well as Detroit.
I did. I spent a year living in Flint, and not in like Flint. Not in like Flint, like as in like a suburb of Flint. I lived in Flint proper.
Okay.
I lived about a block north of the river.
Okay.
Which not that you should buy into this stupid garbage people say, but like people say north of the river is where the town starts to get bad.
Okay.
I don't agree with that because I love my neighborhood, but that was kind of like a local colloquialism, as it were. Yeah.
And what's it like there now compared with, because you were just saying before we started rolling,
right.
You were saying that in, I think, 1976 it was voted one of the top places to live or the wealthiest.
Yeah, it was one of the wealthiest cities in America.
Okay.
And like an average per household, I can't remember the exact statistic, but it was something unreal. Like, the average household income adjusted for inflation was like $76,000.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was
average.
It was a city of immense wealth.
Yeah.
It was well tended to, and only reason anyone would recognize this is because in the movie, what the hell's that movie with Will Ferrell? Semi-Pro.
Uh-huh.
They make reference to the fact that like downtown Flint is bricked, like all of the downtown strip is all bricked out.
Yep.
And they've been wanting to try and fix it for.
Wait, what do you mean it's bricked out?
Like the road is made of bricks, paved with bricks.
Okay, I see.
And it used to be well tended to, and like it was an even road to drive down, even though it was bricks.
Yeah.
But now the tax base is so far gone, like driving in downtown Flint's awful.
Right.
Because like they haven't fixed the roads there.
Yeah.
And they want to tear them out, but at the same time, that's kind of like part of the cultural staple that is Flint.
Yeah.
So they don't want to get rid of it, but at the same time, they don't have the tax base to actually like fix it or maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of stuck in this awkward position because they don't want to like throw away what made like part of what makes them themselves, but they also don't want to. They don't have the money to fix it.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so Flint now is like it's has all this awful press. Nobody really says a kind word about it. All you ever hear is like the water is poison.
Yeah, is that true?
That is true.
That is true. What do you mean?
Particularly north of the river. Honestly, if we're going to speak frankly about it.
Let's speak frankly, yeah.
Particularly in the poor black neighborhoods.
Okay.
That's the parts that are the worst.
Yeah.
What was it called? East Village, where like the doctors and the mayor lives.
Right.
The water's not as bad.
It's always that way, right?
Yeah. Well, and my house when I lived there was built in like 1901, and so of course it had lead service lines. I couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't really shower there.
Yeah.
Like we had to filter our.
We couldn't shower in the house.
No, it gave me a rash.
Okay.
Like the water was like super, super awful.
Okay.
I usually would either go home to my parents' house to shower or come here. So, and this is Grand Rapids, so.
Wow. So saying that the water's poison, like what exactly is it the lead issue that's in the water? Okay, it's lead. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
and then like that part's true, but also don't hear about the fact that like there are some really awesome businesses in Flint. Like Soggy Bottom Bar on Martin Luther King, which is Martin Luther King University. Yeah. It's one of the best bars I've ever been to.
Cool.
And I've been to a lot of bars.
Yeah.
Vehicle City Tacos. I mean, like, the owner is a friend of mine. He does a lot of stuff for like the local punk scene. Awesome stuff there too, and like the Flint local, like a downtown all ages venue.
Yeah.
They do their damnedest to pull in good acts from all over the country. There's a lot of cool things happening there, and you'll never hear anything about it.
Interesting.
Because all anyone wants to talk about is how bad it is. And it's trendy to talk about Detroit. and trendy to say like, oh, you know, I'm part of the Detroit Renaissance, but like, what about the other Rust Belt cities that are falling apart? You know, like Indianapolis is dead. You know, like that city got gutted too.
Yeah. So just if our listener, our audience doesn't know what Rust Belt means, what is that?
Rust Belt's like a post-industrial. Let's put this in the most simple terms. So in like the 1940s through the 1980s, America used to have this fantastic manufacturing base. We used to make everything here, and everyone was employed somewhere making stuff.
Yeah.
Post 1980, a lot of companies started leaving and going places where they could buy cheaper labor, and those jobs kind of went with them. And up here in the Midwest, we have a lot of cities like that. There's Grand Rapids and Flint,
which is where we are now.
And Detroit, Indianapolis, Cleveland. Not that we should throw any love towards Ohio, but it's a Michigan. That's a Michigan thing. When all of those jobs left, we went from being like some of the wealthiest cities in America to being some of the poorest.
Wow.
So, well, not some of the poorest. Mississippi still is beat by a lot.
Yeah.
The rural South is way poorer than we are, but like,
yeah,
we went from an amazing standard of living to like a pretty meager one over the course of about like 10, 15 years. So, Rust Belt refers to like, you know, we used to have all this machinery here to make stuff.
Yeah.
But now it all sits idle and it's all rusted. Yeah. So now we're Rust Belt cities.
Okay. What were the car companies that were here? It was GM?
GM, Ford, and Chrysler.
And are they still here in any capacity?
Actually, if you go to Flint, you should visit the Chevy Commons.
Okay.
The Chevy Commons is a lot. I can't even think of how big it is. It's enormous. It's right by the river. They do art installments there, but there used to be a Chevy plant there, but they leveled it.
They leveled it. Okay.
So it's just a big flat area. I think it's like down the street from the brewery in Flint. But yeah, now they do art installments there because there's nothing.
Yeah.
The Buick plant there is gutted.
Yeah.
There is still a Ford plant in Flint. It's out by Burton. I can't. It's like right off 69.
Okay.
And there are still plants around Michigan.
Yeah.
But all of us, you know, everyone's, you know, we mentioned this earlier. Like every other person you talk to in Michigan has family in the auto industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
It used to be that like every other person you talk to in Michigan had a family in the auto industry, and every other person was doing really well.
Wow.
Now that's not nearly as common.
Yeah.
So
interesting. And so all these people, as I asked you before, they've just moved out. They've just relocated.
Yeah, we have a huge emigration problem in Michigan.
Immigration problem, yeah.
We, I think some people come. We get some traffic towards here with people looking for. I can't even think of what people would come here for. People visit here to drink beer because we have a lot of breweries. That's about it.
Right.
If you want to open a brewery, I'm sure here's a good place to do it.
Yeah, probably is.
We had tax breaks working towards the film industry, so we had some stuff there. Batman vs Superman was shot here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or at least part of it was. But no, we don't have much to offer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the same with a lot of the Rust Belts. You know, like we don't. Chicago survived because Chicago was big enough to be an entity unto its own.
To have other things, yeah.
Right. But Chicago used to be a manufacturing base too.
Interesting.
And it doesn't have that anymore.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you see for the future of like the Rust Belt? I mean, what is going to happen in the next 10, 15, 20 years? What do you think? What's your prediction? Yeah. And that is lady is her name? Bella, sorry. That's Bella snoring. Bella, say hi. Bella. You're on camera. Hey, Bella. Oh, she's a little tired, right?
The manufacturing base will never come back.
Yeah.
We're far beyond that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I suspect if there's any serious changes in the Rust Belt, it won't be things that just happen in the Rust Belt.
Yeah.
You know, like there are ideas floating out there, like basic income, like paying everybody just. I mean, I don't know. Do you read a lot of science fiction?
Not really.
Okay. Do you ever watch movies much?
Here and there.
Did you watch that awful movie with Will Smith called I, Robot?
No, but it sounds really bad.
It was awful. But the original book was about how when we started making robots, we would start making robots smarter and smarter until eventually we had robots so smart they would basically be in control of the world.
Yeah.
And they, like, the whole Asimov code thing of, like, they wouldn't do anything to harm humans.
Yeah.
But once you're super smart and you're a robot, like, you can't do anything to harm humanity. So they will take us in the right direction.
Yeah.
I suspect that as things get more automated, and like the fact that like we don't really need people to manufacture stuff anymore,
right?
Things might change on a whole level just because, and it won't have anything to do with the Rust Belt.
Yeah. What kind of new technologies, new ideas,
right.
New strategies? Yeah.
That's one hope. That, or we're all going to end up basically back in feudalism, working for our benevolent corporate overlords. I think that's cynical. So
I think it's cool that you're sort of standing up for Flint, because it's true. I mean, I'm from Boston, and the only things that I've heard about Flint have been negative.
There was a fine TED Talk once about a woman who was from Africa, and she was talking about how she only ever heard one story, or like the problem with only hearing one story.
Yeah.
And she said, like, when I had my first college roommate when I moved to England, they were like, "Can you play me some of your African music?" And she was like, "You mean Shania Twain?" Because she had regular pop music.
Yeah.
And that person had never considered Africa like a regular civilized place.
Right.
With like regular, civilized middle class people there too.
Exactly.
And
civilized is the thing to say.
Yeah, that's not probably the word I meant. Civilized is inaccurate. What I meant was like, no, because that's the stereotype her roommate had, was that Africa was an uncivilized place, when that's not true at all.
From her words or her thoughts,
right.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. My intention is saying that, like, that's a silly thing that's put into the head of people who don't seek out other stories about things. And this isn't faulting anyone who has only ever heard one story about Flint, but, like, you've got to imagine, this was at one point one of the best cities in America to live in.
Wow.
One of the safest, one of the wealthiest.
Yeah.
And now what is it? Like, top 5 on the murder lists.
Right.
Incredibly high poverty rate. Abandoned houses. People 30 years ago were clamoring to get into Flint. And now there's probably like 20% of probably 10% of the houses are vacant. It isn't the fault of any of the people who live there who are trying to make it better now that they were put into such a garbage situation.
Right.
And the people who are listening to this, and whoever get the chance to go out there, like, Flint is a great city, and there are great things happening. There are bad parts about it.
Yeah.
It is legitimately dangerous in parts.
Yeah.
But there's also parts that are really beautiful. And if all anyone ever hears is the one story about Flint being, and their poison water and their high murder rate, then, like, what chance do any of these cities have?
I love that. That's fantastic, Andrew. Thank you so much for this.
No problem.
This is really cool. I think it's so important. That's going to be the lesson, I think, from this summer, is that it is so important to hear different stories. Because there's never just one
Not
story.
my words, but I felt those words were
I like
an
it.
accurate way of summing up how I feel about Flint.
Awesome.
And a lot of other things, good for Detroit for having... Good for Detroit for having a scene of people who want to try and make it better. Even if sometimes I think that they want to make it better, not to make it better for the people who live there and have lived there, but to make it better because it's the hip thing to do. But, I mean, ultimately this city's still getting better.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Yes. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to close this up with a nice photo of Bella here. Hey, Bella, what are your thoughts on Flint versus Detroit? She's a Flint girl.
She is. We adopted.